The cloud.
There we go. Okay. Aloha, sisters. Welcome. I'm taking you from Egypt all the way to the island of Hawaii. And I'm trying to be outside to share that energy with you. It's a gorgeous day here, just 2 in the afternoon. And I have my hat tour. So I wanted to share that with you that I purchased in Egypt when I was there 2017. What a beautiful presentation. I was just, oh my goodness, to follow in her footsteps. I do believe I was a priestess of Hathor back in the day. She sings to me. So and if I was home in my rainforest home, I'd have my cistern. But I am not home right now. I am on Kona side of the Big Island. Pele has just completed her 14th episode. Kilauea crater started erupting in December. She rests and then goes for a day or two and rests and then another day or two. So we are now episode 14. So there's lots of VOG that's coming down here. So I might have scratchy throat, but just sharing this bountiful healing energy with each and every one of you, and so honored to be here as always. What fun. So today, when I heard that the theme was three, I said, okay, I have to be a part of this because that just sings to me, that number. So let me just jump in. I'm getting excited in my head what I'm sharing, and hopefully you can see me with the background. We have palm trees in the background. There you go. That's more exciting than I am sometimes. So let me introduce myself formally first, because that will flow into my presentation today. I am Priestess Maya Ananda. I'm part of the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple. I began my priestess work in Australia with a Radiant Heart and did 2 years with her. And now I've found a loving home with this temple. So again, just so grateful to be here. I am a priestess of the Gateway. I am guardian of the Western Gate, which is the portal between this world and the next world. My outside work with the with this realm is a spiritual counselor for hospice. I'm an interfaith minister and manager of our hospice, overseeing our grief programs and all sorts. And I am now, it will be 5 years doing this work, day in and day out, working with people who are transitioning. Yes, 5 years in September. So I've had just such a rich experience of learning, of being present for those who are transitioning from this world to the next. And I have learned many things, so much, so much that it's um, more than I can offer in this short amount of time. Um, but brings us to the portal of three. So that's my main focus, and I will get to in a moment. There are three messages that I feel want to come forward in this when I was sitting, meditating and reflecting on what I can offer. And I had a beautiful affirmation to give you a short tangent, is that I was swimming in the ocean this morning and sea turtles just came up around me, and those are um, my animals. They are my spirit companions. So to see them swimming around me, I just felt this just so divinely guided today. So I want to offer their energy to you as well. Just so lovely, so beautiful, such gentle creatures. Yes. So here's our three messages. Two of them come from, so I know in our audience, there are many magical women who can see, as I do, see those who have transitioned from this world and the next, and working with all sorts of wonderful creatures. Two messages that came forward today are from those that reside in the other realm, and from two individuals that I was present at their last breath. So felt very strongly to bring their medicine and their message here. I believe that they shared what they shared with me as a teaching point, because I consider myself at heart a teacher as well. So wanted to share that with you. My first message, though, and this is the foundation of my work and what I do, not only working with the dying, but as an advocate for those who are in the dying process and the transitional process, and for those who are grieving. Many of you know my personal story. I began in this work after my husband passed 6 years ago, and now he works with me in the spirit realm. So he has been my guide in life and then beyond. Yes, it's been full circle. So amazing. So my first message today, sisters, and I know that many of you embody this already, but listen with that space of deep, deep listening, is that indeed there is no death. There is no death. And if you were just kind of tap dancing around it and feeling into it and going, I know in my heart there's not, but yet this is what I see. Please know that there truly is no death. It is just a step between this portal and the other. This is our earth body, this beautiful gift that we've been offered. But it must stay here. It can't travel with us. So, and that brings me back to Egypt and the traveling in spirit, but that's a whole nother, whole nother presentation. But this must remain behind. But our light body continues forever and ever. So that was the most important message to share today, is that truly, sisters, there is no death. And the fear that has been enwrapped around the unknown of that has really done damage to our psyche, to our society. So that is the important thing to start out with today before diving into the number 3. There is no death. It's just a portal. So yes, I have that in bold in my notes. Please share this with them, and I will. So I want to share with you two messages from those that I have helped transition. First, though, let's touch on the number 3. So what I have seen is that there's 2 patterns of 3 with those transitioning. And this will make sense to those who have birthed a human child in this world. We know that the baby just doesn't drop. Maybe there's some midwives as well in the audience, and to the future audience who will be joining, baby just doesn't come instantly. There is a process. And what I have found is that process is a portal of 3 weeks that the body begins to ready itself to birth the human body. Well, it's the same when you are transitioning. I have found that there are a 3-week period that the body just does what it's doing. The body begins to slow down. It begins to unravel. And I'd love to talk more on that, but there's not that space for today. So in the future, I'll be offering other talks about what that actually looks like with magical eyes. Because the beauty of doing this work as a priestess is I see with these eyes in this plane, and I might just see before me someone whose eyes are shut, but then we have the gift that we can journey within and to journey into their spirit and see what they're doing in that space. And it's just so interesting because when I was really young, I had this bizarre wish to be a translator for those who are transitioning. And I thought, well, gee, how does one study this? How does one become a translator to offer those of the family the words of those that they can't offer words anymore? But here I am, and in that space with the guidance of spirit and the dead themselves. So yes. It's just a beautiful process for those who are grieving and seeing their loved one in that state of transition, of dying, and to be able to tell them what they're feeling and what they're saying, and if they have last messages to offer. So it's been such enriching work. But I had a gentleman, I'm going to dive into my examples now, who I'm just going to say was a little bit scratchy in his personality. Well, let's just say that he loved the swear words. He didn't love me. And so I'd come into his space at the bequest of his wife, who was really suffering to see her husband dying of some cancer or other. And she, of course, needed support. And that's what I do, is to support those not only as they transition, but those left behind in grief. But he would see me and he would just pepper a whole long strand of profanity, and more than once ask me to leave. So I would leave his home, but then the wife would call me right after. And so I was on the phone with her. So it became this dance of trying to support him, but he was holding on so tightly to this life. And that is a big part of my work, is to help people to transition, to let go of everything, let go of emotions, let go of physical things, let go of their attachment to life. And he was very attached to life and very angry, as some people are, because he couldn't stop it. You know, when death calls, when our body is saying that it's finished, then it's finished. So he was not happy about the whole process, and just having a really hard time of it. But one day his wife called me and she said, I think it's time. I see that I can feel that it's time for him. And sure enough, I went back to the house and he was in his last process. His heart was slowing down, his breath was slowing down, and I could see with these real eyes that death was coming. But then a really magical thing happened, which I share with you now without many more words, is that as he took his last breath, I could see with my magical eyes, priestess eyes, his spirit disengage from his physical body. And he rose up just kind of in hologram around himself. And he looked at me and I looked at him. And I think we were both a little surprised that we were seeing each other in that space. And it was a moment of, oh, and then he motioned to me, because the dead, I don't usually hear them. We pantomime a lot, and then it's a lot of feeling, intuition. But he motioned to me. It was like taking off a coat. And I've kept that with me, and share that in my teachings. And I felt this needed to come out today, is that death itself, it's just like taking off a coat. So this man who had such a hard time with the letting go of life in those final moments, he was like, how easy is this? And then his spirit just dissolved and our connection separated. But such an important message. So I share that with everyone today, is that it's just like taking off a coat. It wasn't a big deal at the end for him. And it wasn't painful and there was no fear at the end. So that's my second message. Third message, and then I'll get to my threes. So we have this misconception that the spirit and the body, or maybe not in this audience, but the spirit and the body are one. I know that many of the people that I work with who are not in our realm of sisterhood or in this magical space really hold on to what they see only with their eyes, and maybe not even understanding that there's a spirit. But what I have come to see, and the message from a beautiful lady, well, let me just dive into the example. So I was supporting a woman in her late 70s, and she was in her dying process. She was okay with it. She was at peace. Her family, though, was not having the best time with it. And her daughter especially was having a really hard time. And in my work, I support many daughters and mothers, not only in those moments of transition, but just to unravel and unpack maybe trauma or maybe stress that they've had in their lifetime. That's a lot of my work. So I was doing my best to support the daughter, who was just really having a hard time letting her mother go. Is she in pain, my mother? What is happening to her? But knowing it can only say so much. Yes. So I walked into the room and the husband called me. Sorry, I'm fading in and out here. The husband called and said, I think we're getting close. And I said, okay. And I walked into the room and the woman was laying down on her bed, her body again going through the process of transition. Her breath either goes very shallowly or can be hyper. So she was in this hyper breath, and her body was getting very hot, as can happen in transition. Husband and there was a son were leaning over mom, but daughter was far off across the room, not wanting to get close in her mother's space. Again, just having that trouble. But as I looked over at her mom, at the daughter, I could see that the mother, her arms were just enwrapped, if you can see me, around her daughter like this. And it was just the most beautiful moment. Yes, so just to pause for a moment on that image of the mother's energy, just holding her daughter, being present for her. So there's two messages I want to share because of this experience. And one is that the spirit and the body at that transition are not together anymore. And maybe some of you with, again, magical eyes, when the soul is joining with the fetus, there's moments that it's not very attached and it can go in and out and all over. I've had experienced that realm. But it happens the same at transition. So here the body itself was doing what it needed to do because the body is, I say it's a sacred temple. But it still is, I don't, it's a machine of sorts. Um, so it was undoing what it needed to do to finish its journey, but the spirit itself was already gone. So that's important, I think, in this work, is to know that it's not a clean break. The spirit has this ability to go in and out, and I have lots of examples of people who are towards the end of life saying, you know what, I just was hanging over my body, and I was just seeing myself, and now I'm here again. All sorts of stories like that. So I find that really interesting. Yes, and to share. I think that's important for our magical work and our understanding of what transition is and what death is. So there was another part of that, but that feels complete. So we're going to end there. So the three, the portal of three. What I have seen, as we were talking about in the beginning, is there are these 3 weeks that actually begins the transitional process. But really at the end, it can be honed within another 3 days. Um, the nurses, if there's any hospice nurses in our group, will say that the person is beginning their transition. But there's those of us with magical eyes that don't need the nurse to tell us X, Y, and Z has happened, because we could see it, we can feel it. Um, and often the person themselves will say to me, I'm going home. I know. And I believe fully that we have some power over our transition. I have seen it so many times. People who have not eaten for weeks, maybe even a month, no food, no water. Family asks, what are they holding on to? And I say, who is not here? Who is not here that they need to see? Or who have they not spoken to? And sure enough, there'll be some relative that maybe, because we're here in Hawaii, takes a little bit to get here. It needs to travel from the mainland. The person comes, they say their goodbyes, and then the person allows their spirit to go. And I've also seen the opposite. We've had, my goodness, I can't tell you how many times, perhaps elders that are home and they're just being beautiful elders. And then there might be a family member who says, you know what, we can't continue in this caregiving, and maybe it's time for Nana, whoever, to go into a home or a skilled caring facility. And the elder says, not happening. And then literally from day one to next few days, they have a decline and then separate from this world. So I truly believe that we have some control over what happens with us in our bodies and this life experience. Um, so many threes that I could bring in here. So when the person, what am I doing? What time? Okay. When the person does finally take their last breath, what I have seen is that that portal between this world and the next world, there's like this gap. So the person might be in this realm or will be in this realm. And again, this is from my experience. So all of us have different experiences, but this is what I have seen. And this pattern is very predictable. Um, the person is very close to this realm for those 3 days. So it's as if this magical three surfaces again, these 3 weeks for the body to shut down, 3 days at the end for the completion of that process, for the chakras to open, and then this three again after last breath before the person goes off to wherever that is. And I have other stories of that, but too much for today. And in these 3 days, this will be when families have very close experiences with the loved ones. Um, they have a dream or something moves, or they might see them at the corner of their eyes, those final goodbyes. Because now the person resides in that realm of spirit and energy where they can be wherever they want at the same time. My grandmother, for example, died in Chicago. That morning, my fire alarms went off. And I knew within my heart that that was my grandmother, and just saying goodbye. So this is when families will have those experiences, these very profound experiences. And I now, in the beginning, I was shy when I started this work, and didn't mention some things. Now I'm less shy. And I will tell families, you know, after they pass, they are still present and they are still around. So be open to receiving their messages. I think that's important that we know and be open to that. Don't be fearful if grandma is coming back to share her heart with you and her love with you. Um, be open to that. Here in Hawaii, I think they're a little bit more open to the ancestors. It's part of the daily life for Native Hawaiians. A lot of Buddhists as well, Shinto and honoring of the ancestors here with people who came from Japan in the days of plantation. So I will walk into homes before someone transitions and I will have the family tell me, oh, the ancestors are here. They're getting ready. And it's so cool to have that openness about it. There's certainly a difference between Native Hawaiians and their beliefs, and then people who might come from the mainland, different beliefs. So we're a little what is that word? Smorgasbord here, a melting pot of different beliefs. But I love it when I walk into a home and they're like, "Yep, ancestors are here. I can feel them. I can sense them. It's okay. It's okay for our loved one to go because I know that again, death is not final. I know that they're going to shed their body, but then they're going to go on, and I know one day that I will be there as well. So it is such a beautiful space that instead of a space of fear. So, yes, why I wanted to be here today, why I continue with this work is to help to eradicate that fear by saying as much as I can about my experiences, and then gathering all of yours as well, because I'm sure all of you have had some kind of experience with those who have transitioned, perhaps helping someone of your own to transition. One more magical three here that's special to Hawaii is that I work in home, not a hospital, and I advocate for people to transition in home. Here in Hawaii, the person, once they've had their last breath, can actually remain in the home for 3 days. Now, if you're like, if that's a little bit startling for you, just think on that for a moment. Because it's a beautiful experience, what I have seen. They invite families to come in. Sometimes there's music. People will play guitars. There's humans of all ages. Sometimes babies crawling around, animals crying, food. There's stories of the loved one. It's just a beautiful experience to have your loved one there, and then knowing in our magical space that their spirit is around. And I believe be very present in those 3 days. Um, just that honoring of their loved ones. Um, for my work as death doula, we bring flowers and we surround the person in flowers. We make a shrine for them. They have picked out beautiful clothes, so they look like queens and kings. It's an honoring of of their life. Of their life, and their family can come to them and say, "Look how beautiful! Look how at peace they look at this time," and be present for them. Death has become this removed thing where we go to the hospital and who knows what happens. Um, so here I am bringing it back home. And I know that there's many of us who are doing this work to advocate to have death, that time of transition at home with loved ones around, because each of us who does that work and shares that message chips away at that fear just a little bit more. And I think today, especially with our energy that's going on in the world, the more we can do, fading out again, to get rid of fear. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So I feel very strongly about my work and this portal of three and those 3 days that someone can remain in home. And even if someone in the beginning, when I guide them that yes, you can have your loved one home for 3 days, and they're a little, why would I want to do that? When that person takes their last breath and I guide them that they're not going to see that person again, then it becomes real to them about having that person there and about honoring them and celebrating their life. So bringing, as hard as it might seem in that moment, to bring that joy, because it is a celebration. We are here for such a short time, aren't we? And such a joy that each of us here has that magical vision or our magical priestess gifts. It adds that extra layer to life. And I believe for me, part of it is teaching, as I know for many of you, and of course, our beloved Yeshe, to create this temple of teaching. So I think that is my time. I was going to say, sisters, if you love to see pictures of Hawaii and lava, because I love to go when Pele is erupting, like 4 in the morning. My Instagram is Wisdom of the Rainforest, so you can join me there, and I post some of my other work. I'll be doing some teachings online this summer, trying to raise money for a greenhouse because I help to feed the hungry that are in our area. So I'll post that in my Instagram, Wisdom of the Rainforest. And I thank each of you. Big mahalo.
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
Thank you
That
so
was
much, Anna.
absolutely amazing. And yes, that was just so beautiful. And thank you for all of the work that you are doing, not only on the island there that you are, but spreading those ripples out to humanity from where you are. It is such a beautiful thing that you're doing, and it is an honor to hear your words. And we are so grateful that you shared them with us today. Thank
you,
you.
Maya.
Yes. Yes.
Recording,
We're gonna stop recording
but there's
and
no break.
yeah.
So we're going straight into
There
them.
we go. Okay, so